Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of Brothas-in-law. I'm your host tonight, Corey Taylor, along with my brother from another mother, Mr. Michael Bradley. For those of you who are new to our channel, Mike and I are both prior law enforcement officers. I was a Virginia State Trooper for 7 years and also a retired Navy Chief Petty Officer with 21 years of service. Mike is a retired police officer from Pleasanton, California, where he served there honorably for 26 years. Welcome to the show. And tonight we're going to be talking about holiday mindset for concealed carry, which is very important for, a lot of things that have been going on throughout the country, and particularly these smash and grabs. And what you need to be aware of if you're out and about with the family shopping this holiday season, what you need to do, what you need to be aware of, and if need to render aid, what and how you should render that aid to someone in need. Before I turn it over to Mike to introduce our guest, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Get it out there, get this viral, and leave us a comment below if you like the content of this here video. So without further ado, welcome Mike and Joe and Brent. And Mike, go ahead and take it over from here.
Yeah, that's great to be back. Like you said, the holidays are among us, and we're going to get right into it. So some of you guys might know one of our guests from the last time, Joe Leonardo. Let me start with him. We got Joe Leonardo. He's a 29-year law enforcement veteran, retired lieutenant. He's got active shooter. He's an active shooter instructor. He's a Simmunitions Instructor, post Firearms instructor with pistol, rifle, and shotgun. He's also an NRA Pistol Instructor, an NRA Home Defense Instructor, Police Academy Instructor, among other things. Welcome to the show, Joe.
Thank you.
All right, and then we got a new guest this time. Along with Joe, it's Mr. Brant Jorgensen. How you doing, Brant?
Doing well. Thanks for having me on.
Not too bad. Brant is a fire captain paramedic, active 26-year paramedic, emergency response instructor, hazmat specialist. He's a rescue task force active shooter instructor, pre-hospital trauma life support instructor, NRA pistol and rifle instructor, and he's also close personal security member of the NTOA. Well, thanks, guys. I appreciate you guys coming on to the show. We're going to have a good conversation here. We're going to talk about some holiday stuff. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you.
All right. So holidays are here, coming up. You got some concealed carriers out there. And a lot's been going on. You hear a lot in the news. You hear a lot of events going on with trouble in the streets. So we want to try to educate some of our viewers on some of the things that they might want to be thinking about if they're out and about with their families and they are concealed carriers or not. Basic crime prevention tips that they might be looking for. What do you say, Corey?
Yeah, I mean, this time of year, as we all know, crime picks up, and so when people are out and about, it's we never know when an active shooter is going to happen. We hear and see things on the news of active shooters happen inside a mall, and what you need to do if you are carrying concealed, or in our state, it's an open carry state. So what are your actions? What should you do, and how should you respond to these active shooters in the mall? And I'm thankful you guys are here. I mean, this is very important, and not only inside the mall, but what do you need to be aware of while walking to your vehicle? What your gifts that you just purchased, and we'll talk about some of those things. But I think we got two fine gentlemen here that have the experience and knowledge. So what we do, Mike, Joe, if you and Brent go ahead and take a brief second to introduce yourselves and then give us a little background on yourself and tell us a little bit about your business.
Absolutely. So Joe Leonardo, about February 2019, Brant, Archie Chu, and I got together and started Leo Defensive Concepts, LLC. We've been going pretty strong and having a great time with it. It's something that I retired and didn't have anything to do. So I was teaching at the Police Academy And so these guys, I was already teaching with them, doing CCW stuff, or not CCW, but just some training at the range and doing some shooting stuff with them. And so we got together, put our heads together, and developed our team. With that, if you look at our company, Leo Defensive Concepts, we're going to, we start off with pistol, we do rifle, we do shotgun, but that's not all. Archie is versed in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and he does some ground control stuff with us. Because when we think about violence, when we think about being attacked, or it's not pretty. I mean, violence is very, very ugly, and to protect yourself, it's not only with a firearm. There's going to be we might need to fight with our hands and take people off of us. At the same time, Brant brings his specialty, and that's the casualty care, because wherever you have violence, you're going to have possible victims, you're going to have possible injury, and Brant comes into the equation with that and kind of rounds out the team, and which makes us up. Brant, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, no, it's well put. We were fortunate enough to form the company just prior to COVID kicking off. So
yeah,
good, bad, or indifferent. It gave us some time to develop a few things and kind of sharpen our game a bit, and how we wanted to present that. We could be confident in our skill set, but presenting that to students who are going to pay hard-earned money that's kind of a different game. I think we've all been to classes that we wish we had to pay for before, and our goal is to never do that. We really look at a holistic view of what we're teaching for our students. We're looking for the before, the during, and then the after. So the before, much like you gentlemen are putting on today, with the situational awareness of what's happening, that's probably 50% of the equation. The during, 25%, and the after, another 25%. So we try to cover all of those bases. The other thing that we try to do, which I think sets us apart a bit from some of the other great companies that are out there, is we try to keep things very basic, and we keep things very realistic. Again, drawing from personal experience, you pay good money to go to a class, and they teach you a very esoteric concept or something, pistol grip that's completely different, or something that just isn't going to translate well into the real world and how the human mind works. As you know, one of our first tenets is mindset, and we take that very seriously. Changing, especially old guys like us, teaching an old dog new tricks is difficult, and teaching a person something that's counter to an alarm response is generally not successful. So we try to teach the students based on what you're naturally going to do, to be able to direct and refine that. That way, it's a bit easier, it's a bit more digestible for the public.
I want to make a point to say that I actually attended one of the courses for Leo Defensive Concepts, and it was first of all, it's an excellent course. I recommend this kind of course even for retired law enforcement officers, because when you're carrying a firearm off duty and you have plain clothes, it's a whole lot different drawing from plain clothes concealed carry than it is a duty pistol belt. So for my retired law enforcement officers out there who think, well, I did this for 20-something years, as we all know, carrying a firearm and using a firearm are perishable skills. So you definitely want to practice something like that. This Leo defensive class that you guys put on was just excellent. It was real world tactics taught here about what you should and shouldn't do, close combat type situations. It was just really informative. And for people who choose to carry concealed weapons, average citizens, I strongly encourage you to find a course like this. Look up leodefensiveconcepts.com online and check out what they have. They offer an excellent classes for you to take. I recommend someone do that at least once a year. It just keeps your skills up, keeps your mind right. If you choose to carry a firearm or something, you have a bit of a good foot to stand on. So Joe, let's talk about you going out shopping. You got your gun concealed. You ready? You think you're ready for something to happen. If it happens, you're ready to protect yourself and your family. what are some mindsets that concealed carrier should be having?
Well, part of that defensive carry, because again, we carry CCW. We're never on the offense. Okay, it's always on the defense. To a degree, right? I mean, unless the active shooter and the whole thing, and we can. That's a whole different kind of game there. Ball of wax there, and a whole long discussion there. But in defense of my family, in defense of your family, we're carrying in a defensive posture. And my whole thing is, and we started to touch on this a little bit, is situational awareness. Is 50-60% of the game is knowing where you're at in the context of where you're at. Okay. And what I mean by context is understand that, if I'm in a place, in a shopping place, and people are shopping, and then there's that one person out there who is not shopping, who is dressed kind of weird, who is kind of, out of place. Okay. It's all about situational awareness. It's knowing what that person's all about and what am I going to do? And so situational awareness is knowing where I'm at. But then also the second part to that is, what am I going to do about it? Am I going to take that problem on, or am I going to leave that area with my family, and what does that look like?
Right. You know what? Go ahead, Corey.
I think too, what we used to tell people, or even for us as troopers, what we used to always stress, if you're off duty and something like you roll up on an incident like that, your number one priority as law enforcement is your family's safety. So you get them safe first, and then, you go and react. So if you're just an everyday citizen like we are now, again, I would probably still carry that same mindset. Is number one priority is the safety of my family. Okay, let's get you out. Then I would try to find a way to assist the police.
Absolutely. There's nothing that's going to, there's no law or anything that has you having to act.
Right.
It's all about keeping you and your family safe and doing that. With that said, for us as police officers, we're talking about going back and assisting because we have some special skill set. But your average CCW who just goes to the range a few times a year and the whole thing, who has knowledge of a firearm, who can use a firearm proficiently, but at the same time doesn't have the training and the skill and the tactics as a police officer does to go and take care of the problem that way. He or she don't have to. They don't have that liability. They don't have as police officers do.
It's funny because I think that most citizens, when they do concealed carry and they're just going out to the mall or whatever, I think most citizens don't really think about what they might have to do or not have to do if they come across a situation. Right. I think most citizens look at, the television or something like that, and they I got my gun and I'm feeling comfortable walking through the mall. I know I got something to protect me, but that's as far as their thinking goes. Now, I'm not saying all citizens are like that, but I think you do have, we want to really nail that home to those citizens who just think of the firearm as, I got it. That's all I need to know. And that's all I need to worry about.
It's almost like someone purchases life insurance and, hey, I'm good. I got life insurance. One of the things that we inculcate in our students is we use the term thresholds, and we tell them this is something for me carrying for 15 years or so that I've followed is clearly it's an enormous responsibility carrying a firearm, and it doesn't grant you any powers or abilities. It just levels responsibility on you and liability. Right. So for myself, I look at having thresholds, and I run myself through a scenario as basic threshold. I'm out in public, out of my vehicle, something happens. What's my threshold for deadly force? I'm in my vehicle by myself. What's my threshold for deadly force? I'm in the vehicle with my family. What's the threshold? I'm in my home. What's my threshold? And I repeatedly go over that to myself because that's the line in the sand. And just as a quick example, A friend of mine who works for a Bay Area, he's a SWAT officer for a Bay Area agency here as well. We had a very good conversation about thresholds, and he was on the fence as well. He says, "Hey, look, man, it's really tough." I said, "Well, here's my mindset. If I'm in a vehicle by myself, I will take more chances than I will if my wife is in the car with me. My threshold changes based on that. My basic threshold is if I'm in a vehicle and I have no way of getting out of a situation, no way of getting out, and the glass is broken in the window and I've lost my security, that's where my threshold lies. And it's much less if my wife is in the car. Now, there are 1,000 variables to that. So I don't want anybody to think that that's hard and fast, but that's the exercise you have to do in your mind. What is your threshold? Where are you? Because at some point, if you brandish, if you show, if you threaten somebody that you have a firearm, if they call your bluff, what's your next call? People think, well, I'll just show them that I have a firearm. Well, what if they have a firearm? What if they don't care? What if they go to take it from you? What are you going to do? And I think, Mike, I think you hit this right on the head. I don't think people think these things through. I really don't. And it's not a failing. It's not something wrong. It's just that we don't. I don't know that we do a good enough job in our industry getting people to understand that and where things are. And especially right now, you look at some of the current news stories and public events in the news right now. That comes home very quickly.
Yeah.
Well, I think too, we're just the only people who really had that mindset are law enforcement and military. The average citizen, unless they're
I wouldn't say just us, but there's some. I've trained some CCW people that they do. Some of them do, and
that's what I was getting to.
Yeah.
I was getting to that point because unless you are that type of individual who thinks like that, you don't necessarily have to be military or law enforcement. But if you're very active in weapons and very pro, Second Amendment, then you'll probably have that type of mindset too. But the average citizen does not have that type of mindset. So like Brent was saying, when you're out and something like this happens, what do you do? We probably won't panic, but the normal citizens that doesn't have that training, they're going to panic and run for the doors and things like that. What should their first instinct be if they're in the mall and there's an active shooter? Should it be run straight for the door? Or should it be, hold up, let's find which direction the threat is coming from and then go the opposite way?
Before you answer that, great scenario. But as a citizen, that decision alone, like you said, Corey, that's the first obstacle you got to figure out is what are you going to do? Are you going to get involved or not? That's probably the biggest hurdle right there for the average citizen who is not in the mindset of, I have this training, I have that training. That's going to be their first obstacle. And that's a pretty big one, whether or not you're going to get involved.
But that's all boiled down to situational awareness, right? And so we need to know where we're at. And so where am I in the mall and what am I hearing and what is the situation happening? What am I perceiving? All right. And what's going on? What are the elements of my environment? What's happening and what's going on? And then I have to comprehend, was that a mop hitting the ground? Was that a firework going off? Or was that actual gunshots happening where I'm going to have to do some kind of reaction, right? There's going to be some, and then I'm going to have some projection there. And so what is that reaction going to be? I'm going to run. There's an exit right there. I'm going to hide because shooter's right there in front of me and all of this is busting out right here and it's coming at me. Or am I concealed carrying, and do I have the ability, right? The mindset, the skill, the tactics to address the threat, And so and is that functional? You know, what kind of firearm do I have on? Do I have a pistol with 15 rounds, or do I have a revolver with 5-6 rounds in it? You know, in that posture. Do I have my family and my kids with me? So, I mean, when we talk about variables, when we talk about scenarios, there's so much, you know, and when I talk about law enforcement, and I'm in the academy teaching and trying to, you know, get across to these young cadets what's law enforcement all about. It's a little bit of black and white on this side, and a little bit of black on this side, and then a lot of gray. Because those scenarios, I change one little factor in that scenario, and it throws everything out the window, right? Advice that I just gave you, or that that instruction that I just gave you, it goes out.
Doesn't apply.
I changed that one little aspect of it, right? So again, as we're looking at situational awareness, I put out on our website or our social media in regards to your color codes, and that was just something people can have, right? You know, just to kind of address something. I mean, to think about colors and the whole thing, and what we can't do is be walking around the mall in our own little world, you know, behind that phone, right? I mean, that phone is just one of those things. I mean, if you're not, you know, situationally aware of what's going on, I mean, you need to be, especially today. I mean, you guys were just talking about Walnut Creek and the mall, happenings there where it gets robbed. You're talking about just being totally unaware. You're talking about, being in the yellow, right? You know, where, hey, you know, I'm relaxed, I'm prepared, I'm aware of what's going on. That's kind of like, hey, I'm home. My grandson is here. I'm aware, I'm aware of him. I'm aware of what's going on. I'm aware of my environment, I'm plugged in a little bit. Okay. Talking about your orange state, right? Where you're really looking for those, actively looking for a possible threat. How probably you guys the same way, are at the mall and, hey, we're not feeling too good. There's a lot of people in here. There's a lot of, we see a lot of, maybe there's gang inside there. Maybe there's just, undesirables that we're looking at that look like possible threats to us. And we're not feeling too well. So, man, we're up there, right? We're pretty vigilant. You talk about your reds, high threat, high threat. Us going to a call for service, right? And we're up here. I'm on the range teaching, and guns are out, and people are shooting. I'm up here, and I'm looking at that high threat area, right? And then we're looking at black, okay? And that's basically just all out, if I'm in the black, I mean, it's getting ugly, and there's going to be lots and lots of violence, happening because I'm fighting for my life, and things are happening there. Okay. So colors, numbers, pyramids, rectangles, boxes, whatever, however you can do it to try and implement some situational awareness training. It's on you guys to do. But just remember that, we need to kind of, when we're out, especially out shopping, out with our families, and especially during these times, we need to be switched on, and active.
I agree. And Brant, you said something a little earlier about how you run through these scenarios yourself every day when you go out and about. What am I ready for? What is my situational awareness going to be? You're not just, like you said, bury your face in cell phone and not paying attention to what's going around you while you're carrying or whatever you're doing. And really, a lot of the stuff applies whether you're carrying a firearm or not.
Yes, absolutely.
So, and that's the point we want to nail home to a lot of our viewers, is that, be aware. Situational awareness is key, especially if you're carrying a firearm. What do you say to that, Corey?
Yeah, you need to know what's going on around you. You're not saying, be paranoid and just start thinking everyone is suspect, but we're older and wise enough to know when something seems to be suspicious, and you get that gut wrenching feeling that something's about to go south, and you first action is get your family out, get you out. Again, like you guys alluded to earlier, this is all about defense. Just because shots rang off doesn't mean you need to be John Wayne and start running into the gunfight. No, that's not what you do.
That's the
Your
police.
number one priority is to
That's
get.
right. That's the police.
That's the policeman. Your number one priority is to get your family out safely. Now, if the only way out is through the threat, then hey, you should be able to articulate that. Because you got to also remember the liability aspect of that. We talked before, Joe, when you were on the show before in home defense. When that round comes out of that end of that barrel, you're responsible, and you need to know that before you go pulling it out.
Bullet, what do you say? Each bullet is a suit.
Yeah, each bullet is a suit. So you need to be aware of that. That's what we want our viewers to understand. You need to be aware that everything, like you gentlemen just said, is about situational awareness. What is your first thing? First thing, get your family to safety, right? Get low. For me, I always like to know where the exits are. Wherever I'm at, I need to know where the exits are. If I'm out at the mall, we're inside one of the stores, I'm looking where that back exit is if I have to go through. So I'm always running scenarios, even in my vehicle. You're at a stoplight. Somebody just has a wild hair up their rear end. They just want to start plowing people over at the stoplight. What do? Right? I don't like getting bumper to bumper with somebody or with the car in front of me. I like to have enough space so if I have to do an evasive maneuver, I can get out and go. I don't have to back into this guy and pull forward and push this guy so I can get out. I like to leave enough space in between myself and the vehicle in front of me in order to get to do an evasive maneuver. So
we got some questions here. Anthony Brown, welcome to the show there, Tone.
Hey, what's up, Tone?
He says, here's a question for you guys. And it's probably a common question a lot of people really, don't know. But what liability is placed on the civilian if they actually shoot a suspect?
All of it.
Well, that's a pretty broad question because there's context behind that, right? And we need to be able to articulate why that happened and what was going on. But understand that you are probably going to be arrested. Okay, you're going to be placed in cuffs. You're going to be taken down to the police department. Be prepared for those things. Okay, you don't want to talk to anybody until you have an attorney present, and be very respectful to the police officer. It has nothing to do with the police department and being arrested. It has everything to do about articulating what just happened. Professionally and without all the emotion, because God forbid something happens and I just shoot somebody. I mean, what I say and what I do and the emotion and all that's going to be behind there. I really need to watch my words when what that looks like. And so it's better to have an attorney articulate what just happened to the policeman, to the police department to put down in their report. Understand that you're going to go to court. Understand that you're probably going to get civilly sued also. So I mean, it's
house going to get searched,
and so there's going to be a lot of things there that are going to happen. But hopefully it was a good shoot, and hopefully you can articulate the circumstances, and that's why I always talk about being on the defense. I mean, it's yes, we want to go and be that savior and go and get involved in stuff. It's not where we're at. Okay, that's the police's job. That is, they're the ones that are paid to get involved. They're the ones that know the case law and everything that goes behind that. And they're the ones we paid to do that work. For us, we need to be in a defensive mode and take care of us and our family.
One of the things I would add to that as well, too, I think is kind of preparatory, is be careful about what you wear or the logos or the brands of clothing that you wear. You can get a Gadsden flag T-shirt or have kill them all, let God sort them out on your AR. That's not going to play well if you have to use that in a defensive scenario. That's going to go toward, again, back to your mindset. And it's just not mature, quite honestly. It's not a mature thing to do. Firearms are tools with a specific purpose, so they need to be treated as such, I think, with some reverence and some respect. And I don't know that there's a place for a defensive firearm for an individual who's willing to use one that's being inflammatory, maybe with their language or with their display. If that makes sense at all.
Yes, absolutely. Makes a lot of sense. Again, that's another juicy bit of information I think most average citizens just don't think about, what they're wearing, like you said, Brant, some things just, it's not a good optic.
It puts you in a bad position, and I'm sorry, I wanted to touch on something that you had mentioned before. I think someone has a question here regarding what to do in a mall or a scenario. Should there be a situation? I know we all worked in an area where there was a very large public mall, and my agency is involved in everything from the pre-planning to the building to the occupancy of these businesses. So we know them quite well. What I would recommend to most folks, if you're in the mall setting or a very large setting, fire and building codes in the United States are very specific and very over-engineered. So specific to a mall scenario, let's say you're in a cooking store in the mall and something dangerous happens, most people are going to instinctively go the way they came in. And this applies to fire, this applies to an active threat, this applies to anything, an earthquake, anything at all. And you're going to end up getting a bit of congestion from that. Every mall, every retail store has a stock room, and in the malls, and specifically the one that we are familiar with, there's a labyrinth of exits throughout the back of the mall, almost as large as the mall itself. So if you can work your way through the store the opposite direction, getting into a storeroom, there's always by law a way to get out of the storeroom, and it leads into an emergency exit corridor that's sprinklered, it's safe, it's highly visible, and it's well lit. And it's going to put you right into a parking lot, typically a loading dock or something like that. That's not generally accessible to the public, so it's typically not going to be, I'm going to make a bit of an assumption here, not going to be as on the forethought of maybe an individual looking to do harm. That would be my initial recommendation for that. Second observation, I don't want to eat too much time here, is we all have the benefit of having decades in public safety, and the biggest thing that I've learned from that is being able to quickly read a situation and formulate a plan, and be calm about it. That's not something that most people have experience with, and it's not a failing on their part. They just don't have experience with that. So being able to see something and watch individuals, and specifically watching how people behave and act, you can see, well, that's unusual behavior right there. Something's happening. I either need to go check it out, maybe render some medical aid or help somebody, help an elderly individual, or I need to avoid that area. But I think things like that, or that information is going to benefit you better than probably any firearms class you take. You'll be able to avoid something like that.
What about if they're panicking and they don't think about that running into another store and then going through the back of that store into the hallway and then out the back? Because most people are going to freeze up. Should they just stop where they are, get down on the ground, or get behind something to make themselves a smaller target, if you will? Or should they just...
I don't want to take Joe's time. He has a comment, but I want to make a real quick comment. And it's a tough watch, but have you ever watched the video from overseas when the terrorists go through the mall? I believe it was 4 terrorists. Yeah, they go through the mall. It was, I believe it was an off-duty SAS, British SAS officer that ended up killing these terrorists. But there's video from the mall, and you can see there's several different tactics taken by the public in the mall, and it does not work out well for the folks that try to hide or stop or freeze, almost to the very person. Movement is, in my opinion, and I'll let Joe correct me here if I'm wrong, the hardest thing to shoot is something that's moving.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So if I am a moving target and I'm not available to the bad guy and someone else is not, they're probably going to go for the easy target.
Right.
So moving is by far, in my opinion, your best tactic. So I'll turn it over to Joe.
Oh, it is. And I just wanted to get back, because this is all full circle. I mean, it just all these little topics that we're talking about is just full circle. And when we talk about, Corey, go back to what you were saying and how to act, and what is a person with defensive mindset. I mean, you have to have almost basic, be kind of that sociology and be connected with the public and what's going on. Okay. And if you look at the public, they're going to act a certain way. And so think about it. There's four certain distances. Okay. There's our intimate distance. And, that's with, how I stand with my wife, and you kind of see how people act, right? Okay. Hey, those two people know each other, and they know each other very well. All right. There's the friend distance, and it's kind of like, hey, what's up, bud? And it's that, we let people in our circles, and we can kind of see that happening on the outside, when two friends see each other. So, hey, that's kind of normal behavior. There's the business distance, right? Where, hey, we're kind of standing and we're doing business, and it's a few feet apart, and, we know each other, but you know what? We're not buds, and all that stuff. And then there's a I don't know you distance, right? And what does that look like? And when someone acts that way, right? You're just like, whoa, and you see that body language in there, okay? And so when we're teaching situational awareness, and when I'm in, teaching this to the cadets, okay, we're looking at pre-attack indicators, things that I'm looking sociology, right? I'm that professor, and I'm trying to learn this crowd right here, and I'm paying attention to my surroundings, and I'm looking for pre-attack indicators. I'm looking for possible threats. Okay, people with their hands in their pockets, people not giving me eye contact. Okay, something, but they're coming at me, or they're coming towards me. They're hanging in the area. Imminent threats, right? And that would be somebody that would be that immediate threat, someone with a gun, someone with a knife, someone with a bat, there's a weapon maybe involved, or, clenched fists. Okay. They're coming at me, that they're going to attack. Okay. So when we talk about pre-attack indicators, hands always, as law enforcement, hands kill, right? And we're always looking at hands. People, you don't have to be a cop. Being situationally aware, look at people's hands, because that's where they're going to carry that possible weapon to try and hurt you with. It could be a fist, it could be a gun, and anything else in between. Eyes, eyes telegraph intent. Okay, and so when you're watching people and you're looking at something happening and starting to unfold, watch that. Watch those people who are looking right at you, who maybe aren't making good eye contact, but are coming at you, because that has intent to it. They're going to possibly look at their weapon. Okay, so again, what does that look like? Okay, their waistline, right? It's where people carry most of their weapons. If they're going to carry a gun, they're going to carry a knife, in their pocket, behind their back, whatever. But that waistline is statistically where that person will be carrying that weapon. And so I'm looking at hands, I'm looking at their eyes, I'm looking at their waistline. Okay, and then how are they moving? Is it a beeline right for me? And they're coming at me a little too fast. Okay, I don't know you, and you're beelining right to me. Something's wrong. Okay, you're hovering. Okay, and it's just that hover out there, and as I move, they move, and they just continue to hover. Something's wrong. Something's happening. And when we teach this class, the hairs on the back of your neck, or that little feeling in your stomach, and when you start to perceive some of this stuff, and it's not in context of what that shopping mall is about, right? Everybody's shopping, everybody's kind of in their own little world, taking up, and you see that one person not shopping, that one person not doing those things, and you start paying attention to that person. That's where situational awareness is, and that's what's going to get you out of that active shooter. That's what's going to get you out of that possible attack or that robbery or that assault that might occur in what goes on. And if that makes but that's what we talk about pre-attack indicators.
I like what you're saying there, Joe, because I once you started talking like that, I immediately thought about the knockout game that was taking place across the country, maybe a year or so ago, where a bunch of teenagers were just they were walking with their heads down and walking past an elderly person who wasn't paying attention, had that situation, and then come up and just clock them. And what were they doing? Just like you just said, they were walking with their hands in their pocket, their head was down, and they were making a straight beeline to that individual. So I would stress to our viewers that, if you're out walking, the streets, and you live in the type of neighborhood where, you can walk down the street to get to the strip mall or whatever, and you're carrying packages, don't get complacent, on the phone.
Yeah.
Right. You're right. Be aware, you just spent, your hard-earned money on those gifts, and to have somebody steal them from you like you end up getting hurt. You don't want to risk that. So just be cautious of your surrounding area. And like Joe said, pay attention to how that person is approaching you, and even turn around after they do pass you, because they'll come back, circle back and get you, because now they know you're not paying attention to them, and that's when they may ultimately get you. Zach, hey, welcome to the show, Zach. And Zach says, how do we get this in the video form? This is great intel. Yeah, I mean, if we could, Zach, I'll leave that to you. You're the mastermind in video technology, so I'll leave that.
You can always look at it on our YouTube channel, Zach. It's always there. All our videos.
It's always there too. So
but I know, folks, that we're covering a lot of topics here. Recognizing suspicious people and activities, having the right mindset when you're going out and about, especially if you're concealed carrying. These are important things, though, that we want to nail home. To be on the lookout. We mentioned malls a lot because it's the holidays. A lot of people are at the mall. So we talked a lot about your behavior at the mall and how to recognize suspicious things at the mall. Great points, Brent, that you brought up about knowing entrances and exits to the malls, knowing how you can get through the mall from point A to point B very quickly. Don't always rely on the way you came in. It's in the situation, the stuff hits the fan, it's going to be more important how you get out.
Yeah.
Now you're going to the mall. You arrive at the mall, you lock your car up, and you're getting ready to go into the mall. Situational awareness we talk about, recognizing suspicious activity. Don't just have tunnel vision. Don't just have your face in the cell phone. Look around you. As soon as you close your car door, you should be looking around, see what's what, see where you are at the mall. Okay. See what people are around you. Okay. And we talked a lot about that, but it's very important. You guys got anything else to add?
I'm sorry, Mike, I'm going to interrupt you. One of the things that I made a habit of doing. So my oldest daughter is in just getting into law enforcement for the state of California right now, and she and I have always talked about this since she started driving. But whenever I go anywhere, even if I'm busy or in a hurry, if I pull into a public parking lot or anywhere, I always stop, turn the car off, and I sit for just a moment. And one of the things in my career, we want to always see 3 or 4 sides of a building. We want to do what we call a 360. So I do the same thing in my car. I sit there, I turn the car off, and I look around in the lot, all around, and see who's in the lot. One of the things that catches my attention is people that are sitting in cars in parking lots.
Yeah,
okay, we're doing the same thing. So but what are they looking at their phone? Are they looking at me? Are they looking at something else? I always look for that. And I have 2 daughters, so I always told them, always do that when you stop your car. To just take a moment, sit and look and see who's looking at you and what's happening around you. Second point, very briefly, you talked about with packages. If you're walking to your car, from your car, you're holding a package. It could be shopping. It could be a purse. It could be, a water bottle, something in your hand that you can do without. The natural human response, if you throw something at someone's face, is they'll do this. It's a natural instinctive response that people can't typically train or fight through, and it will buy you time to create distance. So if you can create distance between yourself and the threat, then you've bought yourself the ability to be able to get away. So a water bottle, throwing it in someone's face, packages, you're going to lose the packages anyway. It's cheaper than your life.
Right.
Throw it in the person's face and take off the other one.
Good point. Good point. Zach also says it's all about situational. I mean, I get a call saying there's a TikTok calling for a shooting up at school tomorrow. This was some issues that involves this. How do we bring this to light? Well, we had this video. I mean, it starts at home. You have to start talking to your kids about school, and that I don't want to. I mean, that's a good segue into another thing. So this doesn't just necessarily have to deal with schools, or shopping centers, but schools as well. You have to start talking to your kids about school safety and what to do. Now, most schools, and you gentlemen can correct me if I'm wrong, most schools throughout the country have a protocol for active shooters within the schools. And most, from what I understand, talking to law enforcement here, most of the students there would like barricade themselves in the room. You if you're out in the hallway in the school, you like you said, Brent, you have to move. So know where the exits are, know where you can go to and get yourself secured in that room. Otherwise, if you try to just drop down to the ground and try to curl up into a ball, that's probably not good. But if you're moving, you're staying alive.
Right. And you know what? Talk to your schools. For those out there, talk to your schools, get information about what they do. If you really don't know what your particular school does in a situation like that, or what they recommend their students do, talk to the school. They'll tell you what's going on and some of the things that they do to be prepared for something like that. Now let's switch it up a little bit. I'm gonna switch it up a little bit. We're gonna talk a little bit about first aid. Like, what if you get into a shooting, right? Or what are your responsibilities if you're walking through the mall or you're walking downtown or whatever, you hear a gunshot and you see the guy next to you fall down, he's bleeding out profusely, or any kind of injury that you witness yourself. Number one, are you obligated to help that person? I think some people might feel a need to want to do something, but what does that look like? We're all not doctors, but are there some basic first aid type things we should be thinking about and have on hand to do? What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, a great question. And I'll tell you just on a side note, like I said, I've been carrying concealed for about 15 years or so, and I've had very fortunate, very few circumstances where I've had to rely on that. However, medical training and medical skills, more times than I can count while not being at work. I think it's a extremely valuable tool. And it seems to be a hole in some people's training because it's a bit intense and it's a bit time consuming to do. But I would say if you want to do one thing initially to get yourself started on that path to be prepared, I would say some medical training is the way to go. And there's a myriad of classes that can be taken. So for myself, the first thing is always going to be your personal safety and your family safety. Whether it be a penetrating trauma, a fall victim, a medical aid, whatever it may be, make sure that you're safe. We tend to have being good moral people, we tend to have that knee-jerk response to, I want to go help. And that's a wonderful thing to have. And I hope that we never lose that as a society. I wonder sometimes, but make sure that we're not putting ourselves in a situation that's dangerous. Maybe just observing and notifying dispatch or notifying 911 is the way to go. But the meat and potatoes is, I would say, take a good basic first aid class. We offer some of the classes as well. Shameless plug.
No shame there. Leo Defensive Concepts, folks, look them up. Leo Defensive Concepts. No
we have
shame.
2 different versions. We have one called HELP. It's Hostile Environment Life-Saving Practices. And just as a side note, all of our classes have the moniker of hostile environment attached because we're we're trying again to inculcate that this is an unusual situation, this is a dangerous situation, and what do you need to do to be successful within that situation. So that's kind of something that you'll see throughout our classes. With our trauma classes, we typically only teach 4 different skills. So we keep it bite-sized, we keep it very simple. How to control bleeding in various ways, and how to assess a patient. And that gets you through. That will do most of what you need to do. Joe and I would say that are on the same page here. In our professional world, when we come up on a scene and there is a competent, calm citizen rendering aid there, that is wonderful. We really, really enjoy that because we do tend to see the opposite as well. And there are some well-meaning people out there that are maybe not as prepared, or maybe not as have not thought it through quite as well. And God bless them. But having that training and having the calm ability to render aid in size of a situation is invaluable to us, and giving that information to us is great. Knowing what's happening, knowing what happened before, things of that nature. But yeah, one last thing, just to kind of belabor the point here. We're talking about kind of the holiday theme here. We have a lot of relatives with us. We have grandparents. In-laws are older. People from out of state. A lot of traveling. There's a lot of movement. There's a higher potential for there to be illness or there to be problems as well. So I think the highest likelihood, if you're going to practice something medically, it's probably going to be on somebody that you know. Especially at our age, where we have folks that are older around us. I would say, if you want to make something high stakes, that's pretty high stakes to have your family be ill. There's nothing worse than being helpless in a situation where somebody needs help. So I would say get some good, reputable training in whatever field they're looking for, specific to medical for this. And I think that's going to pay off in dividends.
Great. Go ahead, Joe.
Stop the bleed and CPR, is probably the 2, general trainings that I would go out and seek as a civilian and try to learn as much as you can out of it. And again, for us to be on an active shooter scenario, I mean, that's 1 in a million where one of our loved ones get sick and go down. It'd be one of those things that you can help out.
Car accidents all the time, as much as we drive. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I would suggest too that, I mean, I think a lot of people will probably be afraid of the liability if they see somebody laying down on the ground and bleeding, like Mike said, profusely, and whether or not they're going to be second guessing, should I do something or should I not do something? Listen, I'd rather you at least make the attempt to try to save me instead of just letting me bleed out to death.
I agree.
I think
I'm sorry. Good Samaritan laws are on the books, I believe, almost all the states. As long as you're doing something that's not abnormal or unusual or outside of the normal practices, you're going to be fine, right? You're going to get, if for some strange reason this goes to court. Remember, most of these judges are older too, right? So so they're going to know as well. Yeah, as long as you're doing something that's vetted and is
not beyond your scope.
Not beyond your not beyond your scope. Yeah, something like that. I think you're going to be okay. Just protect yourself. Make sure you're protecting yourself from bloodborne pathogens and whatnot. And what you're comfortable with. Yeah.
And I think that would probably be most people's hesitance, because they'll be worried about bloodborne pathogens and whether or not running the risk of catching something. I mean,
you'd be surprised though. You get into the situation, like you say, a family member or something starts choking or something like that. You're naturally, I think most people are naturally going to want to jump in there and do what they can.
Sure.
And even if it's the situation that's not a family member or something happens right in front of you, I think you will have a good amount of people. I'd like to think you'd have a good amount of people that will be motivated to try to do something.
I think there are, man. I mean, there's numerous times I've rolled up on crashes on the interstate, and good citizens are out there, trying to get the injured individual out of the vehicle, and or running over. Hey, troop, you need any help? Yeah, help me carry this guy up the bank. you know, there are good Samaritans out there, and I just want you to know you are protected. I mean, for me personally, I'd rather you make it forth an effort to try to save me. In an event you try to save me and I still die, at least, you know, I feel good. Well, at least you tried. At least you tried.
That's you know,
good.
so folks, you know, the big thing we want you to take from checking this show out is, you know, situational awareness. We nailed that home, I think, to a lot of people, to the average citizen. You know, don't have your head in the sand. Training is excellent. Brant mentioned training, first aid training of some sort. Training with the firearm. You know, you're carrying a firearm, you might as well train with it, and not just standing there shooting at a target, but do something like Leo Defensive Concepts does, okay? And find that training and real world, real training that, you know, that you would in reality have to use, okay? You guys, why don't you go ahead and explain Leo Defensive Concepts, how people can get in touch with you, how can they look at what you got going on and all that stuff?
Well, you can go to leodefensiveconcepts.com. That's our website, and we have all our classes listed there. And we're not really doing anything during the Christmas season, but we're getting ready to put out 2022 shooting schedule. And then we got Facebook and Instagram at Leo Defensive Concepts. And hope you guys follow us, join us, you know, like us, whatever you know the social media has you do, and we'll go from there. But if you are interested in starting with firearms, you know, because you see some issues out there, and you're kind of, you know, whatever the reason is that you want to go out and buy your first gun, understand that things are really expensive out there. Equipment and ammo and the firearm itself. Let us help. You know, call us, contact us. Let us get you going with a you know, we can introduce you to gun shops across the area here, and get you started. And then when it's time to do some training, let's start with basic or safety and basic first, and then let's move to intermediate, and then we can do advanced classes too, as if we get there. But anything you need.
We do instructing too, but we're also students. You know, we also take classes from other companies around as well. We want to make sure we cast a broad net. We have a good foundation. I think you can always learn something from everybody. We have a very good network of friends and colleagues who teach and are students as well that we associate with. So cast a broad net. You know, get training from, you know, your local CERT program, community emergency response team in your neighborhood. You're going to have those. If you're in a small rural community, talk to your volunteer fire department about what they have available. You'd be surprised at what your city kind of classes your city puts on for free in the newsletter that we either delete or throw away. You know, search out companies for specific training, reputable companies for specific training. Ask questions. Ask what you're going to learn. Ask about the instructors. You know, it's your hard-earned money, and you're expecting a service for that. You know, hold the companies that are teaching to a high standard. Make sure that they're giving you what you need and what you want.
Please do that. Vet your instructors. Yeah. You know, we're not the only you know, instruction out there. There are plenty of good, reputable companies that are doing some really good stuff. But there's some that are not. They're just throwing their names out there and in the hat and whatever comes along. I would be picky. I would vet your instructors and go from there.
Great. You guys, you know, this has been awesome information. I'm sorry, Corey, did you have anything?
No. The last bit of thing I would say, as far as the takeaways from this, is make sure you have a plan. A lot of times within the malls, we get separated. We allow the children to go off one way, and the adults will go off another way and do their shopping. In the event something does happen, make sure you have a meeting place. This is our designated meeting place. Anything happens, you know, active shooter, fire, bomb threat, wherever the case may be, have a safe location where you guys can all go meet afterwards. That's the biggest thing I would say for holiday safety, and just be aware. Know your situational awareness. Don't think that nothing is not going to happen to you.
When it does.
Right, exactly. Right. That's when it does. So I'd like to thank you guys for coming on tonight. Man, this was a lot of great information. If you like this video and you like for us to do more, hit us up with a comment below what your thoughts are on this. We'd love to have you gentlemen back on again and talk more about these things. Starting off the new year with a weapon, what to look for when going to purchase a weapon, and what type of weapon you should purchase. So yeah, great conversation. We love it. Thank you all for joining us this evening.
Thank you guys. It's been wonderful.
Thanks to our viewers on here. I see you, Miss Taylor, Zach. I see you, Zach. I see you, Megan. Thanks for joining us, Stacy. I see you on there. Great show. Appreciate you guys tuning in. If you got any questions, feel free to make comments on these videos. Our videos are on YouTube. All of our videos are on YouTube. So if you're not on here live, you can still check out this video. If you go to the YouTube, it should be ready by like tomorrow, right, Corey? By the time you finish everything.
No, it's ready as soon as
it's on here right now. Okay.
Yeah.
So you can always go that and review those, even the older videos. If you make comments on there, sometimes we'll take a scenario, as of a police shooting or something like that, and we'll talk about it and break it down in details, and we'll tell you whether that's something that a reasonable officer would do or wouldn't do. You know how we do it. So thanks for joining us. Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Brant. It's been great having you on the show.
Hit that like, share, and subscribe button.
Corey, I'm also out on the range.
Yeah, I need to get out there.
We'll take care of you guys.
All right. See you later.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, gentlemen. Thank you.
Bye.
That was good, man.
All right.
Yeah, I think you guys say, hey, thanks, guys. Hold on.
Thank you.
Thank you.